right. Good morning, everybody. Today is a Wednesday, June 1st, 2016. And this is Before the First Cup of Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy June, everyone, and happy Wednesday. It is 68 degrees. Nice and sunny here in upstate New York. Looks like it's going to be another nice day, and my plants are growing even bigger. My cucumbers are the only ones that are maybe holding back a little too much, but my tomatoes, I already have 8 tomatoes that are growing, so that should be nice. So where did we leave off yesterday? We titled the show Stress, Gut Microbes, Mental Health, and Being a, quote, Conspiracy Theorist. And we looked at a whole bunch of things. We've been looking at gut microbes and the control of bacteria over our cells in our body, all the different microbial colonies between your mouth, your gut, your fecal. I'm trying to remember what the other one was. I don't know. There's 5 of them on the body, and they all control different mechanisms within the body that help keep us healthy. It's happened over millions of years. These bacteria have evolved to live in symbiosis with us, and scientists are discovering now just how incredibly important this bacteria has always been to us. And over the last, generation or so, we have gone over the top as a society with antibacterials, antibiotics in our food, antibacterials in our soaps, and our toothpaste, if you can even believe it. I mentioned that yesterday. I had used a toothpaste, and I'm not going to mention it because it was probably not a good thing, but I used a toothpaste for many years. I liked it. I liked the grittiness on my teeth. And I found that they had trichosan in that toothpaste. What was that doing to my mouth bacteria? That mouth bacteria that's helping me digest, that's helping, who knows what it's doing. And I'm sure it's helping digestion. It's probably helping my immune system, just like your gut flora. Probably very related to that. But I was putting an antimicrobial into my mouth twice a day, sometimes 3, that was decimating what was in my mouth. Glyphosate, Roundup. Roundup is a strong antimicrobial, an antibacterial, an antibiotic. It kills bacteria. So when they spray it in the soil, it kills all the good soil bacteria. And when you eat it on your food, it then goes along and kills all the bacteria in your gut. Again, causing damage to the balance of that ecosystem that they're discovering is so incredibly important. So we find out just out of the blue, May 13th, 2016, just like right around this time last year, Obama announced his battling the superbugs for antibiotic resistant superbugs. Their White House initiative was announced right around now last year. Well, now, fact sheet announcing May 13th, 2016, the National Microbiome Initiative. Yep, let's throw all kinds of federal dollars in here, sprinkle it around the universities, get people like DARPA, organizations like DARPA and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation involved. We found out Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was already working, funding, sprinkle moneying cash with an MIT spinoff called Synlogics. We've looked at them a few times ago. I probably mentioned them 5 or 6 times ago. There's a story that came out of MIT News back at the beginning of April titled Reprogramming Gut Bacteria as Living Therapeutics. And it was all about reprogramming the bacteria that lives in your gut, making synthetic versions that can then go in and stop the inflammation, stop what is causing the problems in your gut. Here, let's read about this initiative first, and then we'll go back there, and then we're going to fast forward. So, fact sheet announcing the National Microbiome Initiative today, May 13, 2016, 2 weeks ago. The White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, which is the OSTP for short, in collaboration with federal agencies and private stakeholders, wink, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, MIT, all these other groups, is announcing a new national microbiome initiative to foster the integrated study of microbiomes across different ecosystems. And it is hosting an event to bring together these stakeholders vital to advancing the National Microbiome Initiative. Now, I joked yesterday about Tommy Insel from the National Institute of Mental Health moving over to Google and him working on trying to cure mental health issues from a Google perspective, whether it be diagnosing your mental disease via smart app, or I was saying, oh, after we were reading all these stories yesterday, finding out your gut bacteria can directly influence your brain, can make you stressed out, can cause mental disease, depression, all these other issues. I was laughing that good old Tommy Insel over at Google's Verily, working on mental health issues, should maybe get himself a microbiome scientist. Well, lo and behold, all it took was a few little clickies on my keyboard. And what did I find? Yeah, job description. Apply now, microbiome scientist at Verily Life Sciences in Mountain View, California. Experience required 5 to 7 years in biotech, R&D, and research. It is a full-time position developing novel protocols for isolating microbial cells and metabolites from clinical samples. You also need to establish methods to generate and analyze complex genomic, transcriptomic, and metabolic data. And then I have to pay if I want to see the rest of the job description. But there is an open job as of June 2016 at Google for a microbiome scientist working in the Verily Life Sciences division with who? Oh, Tommy Insel, former director, as of October, when he moved to Google, of the National Institutes of Mental Health. Connect the dots, people. Google wants in. And Bill and Melinda Gates. All right. Let's go back to this White House fact sheet on the Microbiome National Initiative. Microbiomes are the communities of microorganisms that live on or in people, plants, soils, oceans, and atmosphere. Yeah, and since a lot of the agencies in the federal government that have dumped crap, nuclear waste, sprayed stuff, went to war, polluted everything, since they're the ones that seems to have caused a lot of the damage to the microbiome that lives in nature. And I mean, you hear that? We're all related, people, right? We talked about that before. What is in is without. What is micro is macro. We are a huge ecosystem, and just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And Dr. Huber talked about looking at the microbiota in the soil all around Roundup Ready plants. Everything was dead, and all this bad bacteria moved in because it killed all the beneficial microbes. That's happening in your body as well, and it then causes the cascade of diseases. I just saw too, they were saying that Alzheimer's now, I'm following that because apparently I just saw that in some of my old show notes. We found out Alzheimer's, they were thinking, is now transmissible, right? And they tied it maybe to some of the prion diseases like BSE, mad cow disease, and that. Well, I saw now They're also saying it may not just be a protein, it might be some immune response caused by leaky gut. Now, we've talked about leaky gut before. Leaky gut comes right from this. Comes right from your gut microbes being damaged. Your body not being able to process foods. The nutrients being passed through that blood barrier in the small intestine without being properly digested. And then add to that all the glyphosate and the poisons that are getting in, your body starts to have an autoimmune response. Typically, autoimmune response is inflammation and leaky gut. And once it gets in, past that blood-brain barrier or gut-blood barrier, and has entered your circulatory system, which was supposed to be protected from poisons, then we got problems, Clyde. And they really think that in the brain, they were saying that, and I'm trying to remember what I read. They're finding, I don't know what it was. You guys don't even know how many tabs and browsers, and I have probably 20 research threads going between all my machines. I mean, I just read. But there was something they were talking about. It totally damages and makes that blood-brain barrier much more permeable, which is very dangerous, right? We've talked a lot about some of these newfangled vaccines, and that's what I really want to get into today is some of this new CRISPR technology called Slender that now allows them to edit DNA for neurons. And some of the backdoor CRISPR that they're doing to food, edible vaccines. We started on that edible banana vaccine. There's the rice, the potato, the lettuce, the tomato. I don't know. We want to read about those because I think they're all related. I think that the leaky gut, and to cause damage to that gut that protects our internal systems from what is going into it. The gut and the blood-brain barrier intranasally were the two premium entryways that they had discussed in some of the studies that we had read for getting some of these new substances, some of these new vaccines or nanotechnology especially, into the bloodstream, intranasally or through the gut. Well, the leakier that barrier is, the less centuries you have protecting you, it's going to let more stuff through. And this is so dangerous, people. They have, without our knowledge, identified the chinks in our armor, identified how to weaken those defenses and make them big open doors, send in little Trojan horses, right? We talked about that too, using like virus-like particles as a payload, open it up, fill it up with whatever you want, nanotechnology or some sort of man-eating virus, who knows, right? They've been making these little payloads. And then they send it into the body, camouflaged. The body looks at it and it's like, oh, it's a virus. And the virus then starts scanning cells, finds cracks, gets in, starts replicating. And now we have a really big problem. We also read about, let's tie into all this, now all these different projects and these synthetic immune systems that are even going to take it a step further, search and destroy these living therapeutics too. Bill and Melinda Gates. We got DARPA working on it. We got Bill and Melinda Gates. We got IBM. We got Google. Their little nanobots. That's their direction on this. Guys, this is just not a good future for anybody. How is this even being allowed to happen? Like, I'm going to join Desert Hawk and we're getting off this rock. Who wants to be a part of this? I don't want to be assimilated against my will. And that is what's happening through our food, through our air, through our water, to our health care. I actually just saw, speaking of getting off this rock, a story came out yesterday about Europa. I always loved Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Europa, they always had said was coated in ice, very frozen ice, but they thought it was liquid water. And now they're saying that they actually think that there's way more there, like twice as much as on Earth, water, and that it could fully support life, has enough energy to support life. I have a feeling they've known about that for a long time. They've been looking for a place to get off this rock short term until they can perfect their long-term travel plans. You know, they've been working on that. There's that 100-year Earthship project that's been going on for quite a while. All right, anyway, before we get to, now I'm on Europa, let's get back to these National Microbiome Initiative by the White House, inked 2 weeks ago. Microbiomes are the communities of microorganisms that live on and in people, plants, soil, oceans, and the atmosphere. Microbiomes maintain healthy function of these diverse ecosystems, influencing human health, climate change, food security, and other factors. Ding, 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 ding. Now, no wonder Obama had to stick his sticky fingers into this pie. It is all about control. Human health, climate change, food security. I mean, come on. Dysfunctional microbes, just like being a dysfunctional human. Dysfunctional microbes are associated with issues including human chronic disease such as obesity, diabetes, and asthma. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the glyphosate. It actually does. We've established that pretty strongly. Local ecological disruptions, such as a hypoxic zone in the Gulf of Mexico, or the whole ocean that's happening right now, and reductions in agricultural productivity. Now, the scary thing is the study of this microbiome now being a matter of national security, apparently. So they're talking about food security and climate change. You know that that's where this is headed. They have the Department of Energy that's been doing their synthetic biology experiments for a long time we found out from the DARPA lady, quote unquote, clean up the environment, in some sort of disaster. They want to be able to push a button, be able to create life on a whim and make bacteria that is able to go do things for them. And that's what some of this new CRISPR is about. These programmable DNA robots they've been working on at MIT. They are capturing life at a microbial level and making it do things for us, making it produce things, or making it clean up things, eat things. Department of Energy has been working on synthetic biology for a long time from a federal level. And now we have DARPA, too, in the middle of all this. With their synthetic immune system and whatever. I mean, don't think that this is not all connected. This is coming from every direction now. We are being enslaved at a cellular level, and I know it doesn't seem like it, because nothing's changed as far as, what's on the TV from yesterday or last year. But here's the thing. It's so small you can't see it. It's going to happen and you won't know it. And one day you're just going to have different thoughts. They have a direct connect from your gut to your brain. They can manipulate how you feel. They can manipulate your brain chemicals. They can put secret payloads into any of these engineered organisms that then they found the two perfect routes to get them into your body, the gut and the brain, to then go in and do who the hell knows what, make changes, add things to your DNA. We found out that synthetic DNA vaccine they talked about in the Wall Street Journal that they're messing around with will go in and actually take synthetic DNA that they've created and put into this vaccine and incorporate it into the host who gets the vaccine, whether it be orally or in a shot in the arm, and changes the host. Guys, this is like beyond science fiction now. I saw yesterday too, speaking of science fiction, William Gibson. If anyone's ever read William Gibson, Neuromancer, I read that probably, I was still in college, so it must have been the 80s. But that was really the first taste of like the future of the internet. They would jack in, it was called. And they had these goggle glasses things that they could connect to this pervasive, ubiquitous network that everyone was connected to. And it really was, I was still in the BitNet back in those days, you know, and you would do what was called, quote unquote, finger your friends. You'd have to type in this archaic language to find any of your friends. And the only friends you could contact were any other friends that were on one of the university systems. I was on a VAX VMS. I mean, look at how far things have come. But William Gibson was pretty prophetic in the way he saw things. It was kind of like a combination of pre-Matrix, long before the Matrix ever came out. It was a pre-Matrix novel meets dystopia science fiction. And he really, you know, it was a good book. And he really kind of painted a picture of the way that I'm seeing things heading now, just with the surveillance and everyone being connected and integratable electronics into your body and things. Pretty bizarro. I definitely didn't want that to be my possible future. I saw William Gibson now. He did some comic just recently that they're saying is, I haven't heard that he's done anything for a very long time. They said it's supposed to be really good. And again, it starts in 2016, but it's a little bit different 2016 than what we're used to, and continues on. So I don't know. I might actually check that out, just because I'm telling you, back 30 years ago when I read Neuromancer, it definitely changed the way that I viewed things, and he gave me some ideas. And now looking back 30 years later, I'm going, wow, he was pretty right on. So anyway, just a little side note. Anyway, all right, so back to this microbiome initiative by the federal government. Microbiomes maintain healthy function of these diverse ecosystems, and that is in people, plants, soil, ocean, and atmospheres. Dysfunctional microbes are associated with issues including chronic human disease such as obesity, diabetes, and asthma, local ecological disruptions such as hypoxic zones in the Gulf of Mexico, and reductions in agricultural productivity. Numerous industrial processes such as biofuel production and food processing depend on healthy microbial communities, and although new technologies have enabled exciting discoveries about the importance of microbiomes, scientists still lack the knowledge and the tools to manage microbiomes in a manner that prevents dysfunction or restores functional health. Now, this is where Billy Gates will come in. The National Microbiome Initiative aims to advance understanding of the microbiome behavior and enable protection, and restoration. Oh, how scary is that? Restoration with what little Trojan horses included. Nobody's going to be restoring my microbiome with some fecal transplant from who knows where. That's how they do it, remember? The fecal transplant. I just saw it, too. One of the NASA scientists just had a fecal transplant. Like, they're trying to sell it now to everybody. The National Microbiome Initiative aims to advance understanding of the microbiome behavior and enable protection and restoration of healthy microbiome function. In a year-long fact-finding process, scientists from the federal agencies, academia, and the private sector converged on 3 recommended areas of focus for the microbiome science, which are now the goals of the National Microbiome Initiative. 1, Support interdisciplinary research to answer fundamental questions about microbiomes in diverse ecosystems. 2, developing platform technologies that will generate insight and help share knowledge of microbiomes in diverse ecosystems and enhance access to microbiota data. And 3, so they're going to map it to just like they are the genome. We, a long time ago, had looked at them tracking microbes through the subway system to see how they could identify someone. And your microbiome blueprint is as individualized as your fingerprint. It is a biostat that they can identify you with. So just be aware of that as well. And number 3, expanding the microbiome workforce through citizen science, public engagement, and educational opportunities. And yes, and Google's hiring a microbiome scientist for their Verily division to work with good old Tommy Insel over there. I don't know. It doesn't say to work with Tommy Insel, but interesting that they know that they can manipulate mental health and moods. And we got Tommy Insel sitting there trying to figure out how he's going to make a big impact on mental health of Americans. The National Microbiome Initiative builds on strong and ongoing federal investments in microbiome research and will launch a combined federal agency investment of what? Well, this time it's not $1 billion. It's only $121 million for fiscal year 2016 and 2017 funding for cross-ecosystem microbiome studies. This includes, and who would it include? Oh, the first one I called out, the damn Department of Energy, guys. You know, these guys, nobody looks at the Department of Energy, but wait, they are involved in all of the reptilian universities in that University of California university system tied to Manat Napolitano on the West Coast. And they're involved in all the synthetic biology stuff as well. And they're tied into the weapons program and to the Department of Defense. And we've seen them listed as one of the top agencies in all of those executive orders and actions that Obama was releasing over the last few years that talked about taking control of like the food system and taking control of the water system. I don't remember which ones those were, but I've read them all. It's all over the last few years. Department of Energy was always right at the top. And I'm like, what does the Department of Energy have to do with figuring out which silos have grain in it or figuring out whose property has natural springs on it so you could commandeer that in the case of a national emergency? Department of Energy is key. Department of Energy is also the organization that they adopt as being, if they came up with this neural monitoring, when we were digging deep into the brain and some of the brain research they were doing, they talked about for this whole mental health thing and the PTSD and the soldiers and DARPA and how to maybe help some of that with your microbiome. They were doing all kinds of research. They talked about the Department of Energy being the hub where they might have this national brain surveillance center. So who knows? Department of Energy, I think, is involved in a hell of a lot more than what we know. They're like the front end smiley. Oh, yes, we're the Department of Energy. We're important because without energy, you'd be useless. No power, no nothing. Department of Energy, though, is always on top here. And another one's NASA, right? Ding. All right, so the Department of Energy proposes $10 million in new funding in fiscal year 2017 to support collaborative interdisciplinary research on what? Oh, the microbiome. Yes, the Department of Energy has been modifying bacteria for a long time. And I mean, they can do biofuels. I was reading a couple news stories. They got some stuff going on with, I don't know if it was E. coli. They're producing CO2. And using CO2 somehow to either create energy or to produce energy. I don't know, we might have to look at that one later. I have too much up right now. But that was just a new story like within the last day or so in the UCY feed. Another one that is involved here is who? Oh, NASA. Yes, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. They are all over this microbiome thing. They are now proposing $12.5 million in new funding over multiple years to expand microbiome research across Earth's ecosystems and in space. Who else? Another one of our favorites that have shown up a lot of times. The good old National Institute of Health. Ding, ding, ding. National Institute of Health will invest an additional $20 million into the microbiome research and grants for fiscal year 2016 and 2017, with a particular emphasis on multi-ecosystem comparison studies and investigation into design of new tools to explore and understand the microbiome. Number 4, the National Science Foundation. Now, these guys are involved in everything. We find their name everywhere, and they're in the middle of all the brain research as well, and the genome and all this other stuff. I mean, National Institute of Health, National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, and NASA. NASA kind of stays out of it, but they're always in the background. These guys are involved in a lot of stuff. National Science Foundation proposes $16 million in fiscal year 2017 for microbiome research that spans the spectrum of ecosystems, species, and biological scales. The Department of Agriculture is the last one. This is number 5. They're proposing $15.9 million for fiscal year 2017. Of course, agriculture probably going to hand all their data over to places like Monsanto, who's using a lot of this same research to create their frankenfoods. They fully well know that their glyphosate is an antibacterial. Their glyphosate decimates the soil microbiota. Dr. Huber, who spent 50 years of his career studying animal and plant pathogens, discovered like 30 years ago that glyphosate was causing problems and has tried to raise the alarm. Now, Dr. Huber is a specialist that's worked with the federal government. If you look, we did a whole show one time where we looked at his resume and everything. Dr. Huber's been working for the feds and the Department of Defense for a lot of years on the back end in regards to their biowarfare program and their plant and animal pathogen, Plum Island, Fort Detrick, Maryland. He's been a part of all that. He's the foremost authority on Russian bioterror programs. So when Dr. Huber opens his mouth and writes a letter to good old Tommy Vilsack talking about how we shouldn't be releasing any more genetically modified crops, and in this case, this was the alfalfa and the soy, and nobody listens to him, it's very concerning. So we have the Department of Agriculture that is also involved in this microbiome initiative, proposing more than $15.9 million fiscal year 2017 to expand computational capabilities for microbiome research and human microbiome research through the Agricultural Research Service, and approximately another $8 million for fiscal year 2017 to support investigations through the National Institute of Food and Agriculture of the microbiomes of plants, livestock animals, fish, soil, air, and water as they influence the food production system. Guys, they could weaponize bacteria to just kill everything that's supposed to be there. They could create something as they're understanding how the microbiome is important not only in human bodies and all of the different things that the 5 colonies within our body support to keep us healthy, but within the environment. And I mean, they are literally, the bag just closed. They want to discover the microbiome of plants, livestock animals, fish, soil, air, and water as they influence our food production system. You know, once they have that knowledge at their fingertips, we're going to be helpless. They could wipe out an area And I mean, not that they can't do that now. They could just spray us with some poison and bang, it's over. But I mean, they could easily not just wipe it out, but they could slip in Trojan horses with whatever they program this bacteria to do, insert it into things, put it into the environment. It becomes a part of your microbiome as you consume it. You know, just like we take probiotics or whatever that helps your gut bacteria flourish again after it's been damaged. If they can understand how to manipulate the microbiome internally and externally, there's no defense against that. How do you defend yourself against organisms that you can't see that are going to be in your entire environment and everything we touch and breathe and eat and drink and whatever? How do you stop being potentially polluted? Where's the informed consent? Where's being able to tell what they've done to it? Like this has now gone beyond the point. Like before I could at least see, oh, look, you know, they're doing this, that, or the other thing, or we catch them in some studies or whatever, but this has gone underground now. This is now part of core science in federal organizations like the Department of Energy and Department of Agriculture, National Science Foundation, National Institute of Health. And who are we bringing in? Well, let's talk about this. In addition, following this national call to action issued in January, more than 100 external institutions, i.e. companies, groups, and universities, are today also announcing a new effort to support microbiome science. And who are they? Oh, well, there's a few bullet points here. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, ding ding, are investing $100 million over the next 4 years to investigate and develop tools to study human and agricultural microbiomes. Number 2, the JDRF. I don't remember what that stands for, but they're pretty important. I think that is the, hold on, let's find out. We've run into them before. Is this the Diabetes Foundation? The Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. So that would be because having that complete cascade breakdown of your immune system and your digestion caused by glyphosate can also cause diabetes. That's one of the Western diseases, as well as obesity and many other things. Yes, the Junior Diabetes Research Foundation will invest $10 million over 5 years to address microbiome research related to type 1 diabetes. Number 3, the University of California, San Diego is investing $12 million in the Center for Microbiome Innovation to enable technology developers to connect with end users. Step right up, Johnny. We got a cure. I don't know who this is. A company called One Codex is launching a public portal for microbiome data, allowing greater access to the data for researchers, clinicians, and other healthcare professionals. The Bio Collective, LLC, along with the Health Ministries Network, what the hell is that, are also investing $250,000 toward the building of a microbiome data and sample bank and the engagement of underrepresented groups in microbiome research. And last but not least here in this little group, the University of Michigan. Now, did we just find out the University of Michigan was connecting up with DARPA and Toyota and the car manufacturers as part of this artificial intelligence center? Well, University of Michigan, bend over. With support from the Howard Hughes Medical Institute and Procter & Gamble, ding, they will invest $3.5 million in the Michigan Microbiome Project to provide new research experiences for undergraduate students. That's got to make you feel pretty warm and fuzzy inside that the White House is taking such a front seat role to understanding you, your environments, the air you breathe, the water you drink. It's such an intimate level. I know it makes me feel all warm and prickly inside. Here's another story. This was from 2014, and I think we might have even covered something that looked at a study that was beyond this one. It was after this one, I believe, with the subway station. Researchers back in 2014 used an iPhone tracking app in a year-long microbiome study, a new longitudinal study of the microbiome from researchers at Harvard and MIT. See, lizards' pits have been in the middle of this for a long time. What's just so frightening about this is places like Harvard and MIT and the Weiss Institute, where they're making little origami robo-bees and DNA origami robots that then can be CRISPRed into any bacteria and slipped into your body to do whatever. It's a pretty scary thing. These people are all involved. This is an evil plan. I see in the middle of all this Bill and Melinda Gates. Billy Gates with that evil look on his face, rubbing his hands together, looking over his glasses. This is not a good place to be. Researchers at Harvard and MIT demonstrate how the ubiquity of a smartphone enables research that would have previously been much more difficult. In a study, 2 patients tracked a number of health factors on an iPhone app for a year and also took stool samples every day. Hopefully they didn't smear it on their phone. We found out, though, even that kid, the McDonald's kid, did that 10-day study. We ate McDonald's for 10 days. He was a biology student. His dad was a doctor, I believe. He was a doctor of something. They did fecal samples before and after for 10 days. And then McDonald's food, loaded with the antibiotics in the meat and probably glyphosate on everything else, decimated his gut bacteria. The kid said he turned gray by day 10. Don't think that isn't happening with any commercially processed foods out there. Anyway, so these 2 people, they tracked health factors on an iPhone for a year, took stool samples almost every day. Researchers analyzed the bacteria in the stool samples alongside the health tracking data to see what impact the subject's lifestyle had on their microbiome or the ecosystem of bacteria living in their digestive tract. Subjects used a modified version of the database app called TAP Forms to track 13 parameters coming to a wearable device near you. I could tell you, they're already rolling that out. The Levi's jean jacket from Google with their little wearable computing in it. But this is already 2 years ago, just on a cell phone. I've been talking about these biosensors. This TAP form can track 13 parameters: ailments, bowel movements, daily notes, diet, exercise, fitness, location change, medication, mood, oral hygiene, sleep, urination, and vitamin intake. These 2 subjects were selected partially based on a screening process for people who would be meticulous about data entry. I know a few people like that. Our findings suggest that although human-associated microbial communities are generally stable, they can be quickly and profoundly altered by common human actions and experiences. Most of the data scientists had subjects collect turned out to be irrelevant to the microbiome, which is still valuable as it allows future studies of this kind to be more focused. 2 things that did have big effects on the microbiome were, 1, diet, if you wouldn't have guessed it, and number 2, illness. The study found that only major changes that happened to subjects' microbiomes were related to these big events. One subject took a trip to a developing country that triggered a major diet change, which shook up his microbiome. I wonder if that's why when you travel, you tend to have stomach issues. That affects everything. That affects like how you digest food and how you process nutrients. what your mental state's going to be. Interestingly, upon his return to the U.S., his microbiome bounced back to its previous makeup. The other person had become sick from salmonella poisoning, and even after he recovered from the illness, the makeup of his microbiome had changed, with a new species taken over one that was eradicated by the salmonella bacteria. So that's kind of frightening. Wonder how that affected his mental state, or if it changed his personality. We looked at those personality transplant experiments they were doing with mice, where they were taking some of the fecal material bacteria from a mouse that was outgoing and transplanting it into a mouse that had been kind of skittish, and vice versa. And they actually swapped traits. On a day-to-day level, one of the only things to cause a quick change in the microbiome was fiber intake, which could alter the ecosystem of the gut in a single day. Fiber input. They have over-the-counter stuff. That's weird. I wonder what kind of fiber. Yogurt also produced statistically significant changes in one day. The study of the microbiome is a relatively new area of research. Yeah, we just found out now that we got the White House weight behind it, and all these different institutions, colleges, federal agencies, and corporations. We should have a lot of data in no time. All right, so where do we go from here? Of course, NASA's in the middle of all this. May 9th, 2016, former NASA scientist takes poop pills in first ever microbiome transplant attempt in humans. Hosea Zanier risked death to rid himself of gastrointestinal issues that have plagued him for years. And we read, though, that they actually, maybe it was unofficially, but they actually have done fecal transplants. There was that one doctor who's been doing it for quite a while. We've been reading about it here for a couple years, at least in experimental stages. So I guess this NASA scientist, former NASA scientist, is now the first official case. Leave it to NASA, and they should be, because NASA's involved in the middle of this. They're one of the contributors per the White House document. Leave it to NASA scientists to go where no one has gone before in order to cure severe gastrointestinal problems, which, they don't say where those severe gastrointestinal problems came from. But I'm going to tell you, it's the antimicrobials. So whether it be the glyphosate in your food, or overuse of antibiotics from your doctor in the meat you eat, or trichosan in your toothpaste and everything else you're drinking. I don't even know what else they were putting that in. If you decimate your microbiome, you're going to have major gastrointestinal problems, leaky gut syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease that then turns into autoimmune, depression, mental health issues. It's all related to the same cascade. In order to cure severe gastrointestinal problems, Hosea Zanier took a huge risk and pushed the boundaries of modern medicine. He decided to try and replace his microbiome, the trillions of microbes that live inside each person's body, with those of another person. And this is another question. We found that in rats or mice, I think they were using mice in that personality transplant experiment, that different bacteria in the gut cause different mental states. Some people can be depressed. Some people can be mean. We looked at the toxoplasmosis that they're saying now causes rage disease or rage disorder. So if you transplant your gut microbiome with that of another person, is that going to permanently change your personality? I don't think they're addressing that, but we've seen research in animals that, yeah, it does. It changes your personality. Anyway, so he wanted to be the first one to see what would happen and replace his microbes with those of another person in over 4 days. Zanier, who earned a PhD in biophysics from the University of Chicago and was a postdoc researcher for the Ames Research Center at NASA for 2 years, attempted to wipe his own microbiome clean. Wonder if he ate at McDonald's for 10 days. And then took fecal matter pills and swabbed different parts of his body with bacteria from a donor in an attempt to replicate the donor's microbiome in his own body. A microbiome transplant, as Zehner dubbed it, has never been documented before. So, okay, that's what he's doing. He's documenting it as a scientist. Zehner believes in the power of human bacteria to treat ailments. He says, I don't like titles, but I generally refer to myself as a biohacker. Gotta love those biohackers. Fecal transplants have seen some success in treating patients with gut issues in the past, but all donors are fully vetted. Less than 3% of all donors that we screen end up qualifying as donors, says Mark Smith, director of Open Biome. But a full microbiome transplant could make a person very sick for a host of other reasons, not the least of which is that the fact of wiping all that bacteria from one's body is incredibly dangerous. Nevertheless, Zehner went ahead with the experiment, and the results were astonishing. Not only did Zehner not get sick, but he felt better within 2 days. He went from having to run to the bathroom more than 4 times a day to having to go just once. And the data showed that the bacteria from his post-transplant feces were more closely related to his donor rather than to his own pre-transplant bacteria. He also developed a taste for sweets, which, ding, that's bad. Something his donor has always had, but Zehner never did before the experiment. And though the results were inconsistent for the rest of his body, Zehner said that he believed the experiment to be successful. It is exciting to think that we have a chance to affect the outcome of our own lives in these medical instances. I was like, what's the insanity, people? So then let's add to this. So we got NASA involved. We got the feds. We got the White House. We got the National Institute of Health, the National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy, Department of Agriculture, University of California, University of Michigan, MIT, Harvard. They're all in the middle of this. They're all rubbing their hands together, thinking about how they could cash in. Cha-ching. All right, I guess we're going to go here, and then this is where we're going to pick it up tomorrow, and we're going to hit Bill Melinda Gates hard tomorrow because I got 3 stories then to kick it off and get into some of these edible vaccines. We read this story before, but this is an appropriate time to refresh our memory, and this is out of MIT News. Reprogramming gut bacteria's living therapeutics, daily doses of synthetic biotics. So this isn't like taking someone else's microbiota. This is literally creating it from scratch and then putting it inside our bodies to see what it's going to do. Reprogramming gut bacteria's living therapeutics, daily doses of synthetic biotics developed by startup Synlogics may sense and treat metabolic diseases from April 5th, 2016. An MIT spin-out, Synlogics, is aiming to create a new class of medicines by reprogramming bacteria found in the gut as living therapeutics. Based on research by its co-founders, MIT professors Tim Liu and Jim Collins, Synlogics creates so-called synthetic biotics, which sense and correct metabolic abnormalities that underlie some major diseases and rare genetic disorders. Human intestines are filled with trillions of bacteria, collectively called the microbiota, that carry out vital health functions. And Synlogics synthetic biotics, which are in capsules, liquid suspensions, and other dosage forms that can be taken regularly, like that little commercial, augment the microbiota with a new metabolic capability or complement lost functionality of organs such as the liver. And they can get to every part of the body. And by hijacking the microbiome, they now have a back door, a direct door, a front door, actually, not even a back door, a front door across that blood barrier. Over the past decade or so, the intricate connections between microbes and our bodies have become clearer and clearer. It is well known the bacteria that live in our gut have a major influence on human health, says Lou. And remember, this is the guy who's involved in all these things. An associate professor of electrical engineering and computer science, and an associate professor of biological engineering, as well as the head of MIT's synthetic biology group, who serves as the scientific advisor for Synlogics. We leverage that interface as a way of treating human disease. Last month, Synlogic raised an additional $40 million in venture capital, and secured its first industry partnership with pharmaceutical giant AbbVie. And for partnerships, Synlogic will collaborate with AbbVie to develop synthetic biotics for potential treatment of inflammatory bowel disease, which may include probiotic microbes programmed to detect intestinal inflammation and then produce anti-inflammatory molecules or break down the pro-inflammatory effectors. We read about those pro-inflammatory effectors back a week or so ago. I don't remember what they were called. L3s, maybe. But that's a key to all disease, that inflammation. If they can control that inflammation, they can control a lot of diseases. But I don't know if I like this from a synthetic perspective with Bill and Melinda Gates involved as investors, and MIT being the home of where this all came from. All right, guys, well, I don't know. My time is messed up here, so make sure you stick around because it is getting close to the end of the show, if you can even believe it. And we're going to head out, start here tomorrow. Make sure you stick around, though, because it is Wednesday. Is it? I think so. Is it Wednesday or Thursday? I'm so confused. I think it's Thursday. No, it's Wednesday. Hold on. Let's look at the calendar. It's Wednesday. So make sure you stick around as Lonnie Clark is live up next. There we go. And there's all kinds of new shows tonight. Chuck Ocelli, Cuddy, I don't know. Never mind. Have a good Wednesday. I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Everybody take care.